The idea of a Roman legion lost in the desert, ending up thousands of miles away in ancient China, sounds like something from a movie. It's a story that's been told for a long time. People love this kind of mystery. It connects two of the biggest empires from the ancient world, Rome and China. But is there any truth to it? Let's look at what we know and what we don't. It all starts with a huge Roman defeat. The year was 53 BC. A Roman general named Marcus Licinius Crassus led an army into Parthia. Parthia was a powerful empire east of Rome, roughly where modern-day Iran is. Crassus was one of Rome's richest men. He won a military glory to match Pompey and Caesar, the other two strong leaders of his time. He thought invading Parthia would give him that. It was a bad idea. Crassus brought 7 legions, thousands of soldiers, to the deserts of Mesopotamia. The Parthians were skilled horse archers. Their tactics were very different from the Roman way of fighting. Roman legions relied on close quarters combat, heavy infantry, and disciplined formations. The Parthians would fire arrows from a distance, retreat, then turn and fire again. This was called the Parthian shot. It was incredibly effective. The Roman army met the Parthians at a place called Carrhae. It was a disaster for Rome. The Parthian cavalry, with their endless arrows, surrounded the Roman squares. The Romans couldn't get close enough to fight back properly. They were picked off one by one. Crassus's son, Publius, was killed. Crassus himself was later tricked into a meeting with a Parthian general and killed too. It was a crushing loss. Thousands of Roman soldiers died on that day, and thousands more were taken prisoner. Estimates vary, but many records say about 20,000 Romans died, and 10,000 were captured. This wasn't just a small defeat, it was a huge blow to Roman pride and power. These captured soldiers were a big problem for Rome. They were taken deep into Parthian territory. What happened to them after that? No one really knew for sure. Roman historians wrote about the defeat. They told of the captured men. But then the trail went cold. These 10,000 men just vanished from Roman history. They weren't returned to Rome. They didn't escape and come back. They were gone. The Parthians sometimes used captured soldiers in their own armies. They might have sent them to distant outposts. They might have used them as slaves. This wasn't unusual in ancient warfare, but the sheer number of these Roman legionaries made their disappearance a lasting mystery. This mystery is the first piece of the puzzle. Where do these trained, disciplined Roman soldiers go? Their story, or lack of one, lay dormant for centuries, waiting for someone to connect it to something else, something very far away. Centuries later, an intriguing idea began to form. What if those lost Roman soldiers didn't just disappear into the Parthian Empire? What if they ended up much further east? The idea connects to a remote village in China. This village is called Liqian. It's in Gansu province, a place in western China. This area is close to the old Silk Road, a network of trade routes that connected east and west. The connection started with a story. In the 1950s, a Chinese scholar named Homer H. Dubs, an American history professor, proposed a bold theory. He looked at old Chinese historical records. He found something interesting. He thought those lost Romans might have fought for the Chinese or against them hundreds of years after Carrhae. The key to his idea was the Battle of Ziji. This battle happened in 36 BC. It was a fight between the Chinese Han Dynasty army and a Xiongnu chieftain named Jiji. The Xiongnu were a nomadic people, sometimes called Huns in the west. They were a constant threat to China's northern borders. The Chinese general Chen Tang led an expedition deep into Xiongnu territory. They went a long way to capture or kill Jiji. The Chinese historical text, the Book of Han, written by Ban Gu, describes this battle. And it contains a strange detail. It talks about a group of soldiers fighting for Ziji. These soldiers used a fish scale formation. It looked like they locked shields together to protect themselves. This description immediately made many people think of the Roman testudo formation. The testudo, meaning tortoise, was a famous Roman tactic. Soldiers would form a compact block, holding their shields over their heads and to their sides. This created a shell, protecting them from arrows and other projectiles. It looked like a tortoise shell. But why would soldiers in Central Asia use a Roman formation, and why would they look different? The Chinese text also mentions that these specific soldiers were captured after Ziji's defeat. They were described as having distinct physical traits. Over the years, people in Liqian have sometimes shown some European features. They have lighter hair, blue or green eyes, or larger noses than typical Han Chinese people. This sparked the question, could these be the descendants of those Roman soldiers? The theory suggests the Parthians, after capturing the Romans at Carrhae, might have moved them to their eastern border. Or perhaps they sold them to the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu were always fighting. They would have welcomed skilled warriors. These Roman legionaries, used to fighting, might have been integrated into the Xiongnu army. They would have brought their unique fighting style with them. So when General Chen Tang attacked Ziji's city, he encountered these strange, disciplined fighters. He defeated them. The Chinese army, instead of killing them all, might have taken them prisoner. And then, according to the theory, they settled them in a frontier town. That town eventually became Liqian. The name Liqian itself has been a point of interest. Some scholars think it might be a Chinese transliteration of Liqian, or maybe even Alexandria, a common name for cities founded by Westerners. It's a huge leap, linking a Roman defeat in Mesopotamia to a small village in China. But the pieces fit together in a way that makes you wonder. The lost legions, the unique fighting formation, the distinct appearance of some villagers. It's enough to make people start digging for more answers. The story bridges continents and centuries. It paints a picture of incredible journeys and forgotten histories. The idea of Roman descendants in China is captivating, but it needs more than just a good story. People started looking for solid proof. They looked at a few main areas: archaeology, genetics, and the historical records again. First, archaeology. Researchers went to Liqian and the surrounding areas. They hoped to find Roman artifacts. Things like coins, pottery, weapons, or even parts of armor. Finding a clear Roman helmet or a Roman standard would be a huge discovery. And they did find some things. Some ancient coins were found, but these were common along the Silk Road. Roman coins traveled far. Finding one doesn't automatically mean Romans lived there. Other finds included some pottery shards that might have some Roman influence, or some tools. But none of these finds have been definitive. Nothing screams Roman legionary camp like what you'd find in Europe or the Middle East. The evidence is scattered and open to interpretation. It's not the smoking gun many hoped for. Then came genetics. In recent years, DNA testing became possible. This was a big hope. If the people of Liqian really were descendants of Romans, their DNA should show European ancestry. So, researchers collected DNA samples from people in Liqian who had those distinctive features. The results were interesting, but also complex. Many people in Liqian do show some genetic markers for European ancestry. This means their ancestors weren't purely East Asian. They had some European blood mixed in. But here's the catch. European ancestry is a very broad term. The Silk Road was a highway for trade and migration for centuries. Many different groups traveled it. Central Asian peoples, Persians, Greeks, and others from the West moved along these routes. Any of these groups could have mixed with local populations in China. So, while the DNA evidence shows Western influence, it doesn't specifically point to Roman legionaries from 53 BC. It's hard to distinguish between a Roman soldier and, say, a Sogdian merchant from a few centuries later. The DNA tells us there was mixing, but not exactly who was mixing or when. It just isn't specific enough to prove the Roman legion theory. The name Liqian also got a lot of attention. As mentioned, some thought it could be Liqian. Others suggested Alexandria, but Chinese place names have long histories. Liqian could also just be a local name that changed over time. There is no clear proof that it directly came from a Roman word. It's a tempting idea, but again, it's not a rock-solid piece of evidence. It's a speculation based on sound. Another part of the search for proof involved revisiting the historical texts. Scholars went back to the Book of Han. They looked closely at the description of the fish scale formation. They asked if it could mean something else. Was it definitely a Roman testudo? Other armies in history have used shield formations. It might have been a way of describing a general type of disciplined defense, not specifically Roman. The text also mentions the foreign soldiers were tattooed. Romans weren't typically tattooed, but some auxiliary troops or non-Roman groups they encountered might have been. This detail adds another layer of complication, so the proof is not as strong as the theory itself. The archaeological finds are weak. The genetic evidence shows Western ancestry but can't pinpoint it to Roman soldiers. The name origin is speculative. All these pieces are intriguing. They hint at a connection. But they don't give the definitive proof needed to say, yes, a lost Roman legion ended up here. The evidence leaves a lot of room for doubt. It's more of a collection of interesting coincidences and possibilities than a clear answer. For every person who loves the idea of Romans in China, there's a skeptic. And these skeptics have some strong points. Most mainstream historians and archaeologists don't think the theory holds up to close scrutiny. They point out the gaps in the evidence. One big doubt comes from the sheer distance and logistics. How exactly would these 10,000 Roman soldiers, after being captured by the Parthians, travel thousands of miles across Central Asia to fight for his young new chieftain? This journey would have been incredibly hard. They would have needed supplies, guides, and safe passage. They would have crossed vast deserts and mountains. While ancient armies did move long distances, moving such a large group of prisoners and keeping them intact as a fighting force is a huge challenge. It's a long way from Parthia to the Chinese border. Another point of skepticism is the timeline. The Battle of Karhe was in 53 BC. The Battle of Ziji was in 36 BC. That's only 17 years. For captured Roman soldiers to be taken by the Parthians, then sold or transferred to the Xiongnu, then integrated into their army, and then be found fighting in a unique formation, all within 17 years, is a tight window. It's possible, but it doesn't leave much room for the gradual blending or long-term settlement some theories suggest. And it implies the legionaries maintained their distinct Roman identity and fighting style for nearly 2 decades in a foreign army without much historical record of it. The fish scale formation in the Book of Han is often cited as the strongest piece of evidence, but critics argue that it might just be a common defensive formation. Other armies, not just Roman ones, could have used similar shield walls or interlocking defenses. It might have been a general term for a disciplined formation that the Chinese observers hadn't seen before, rather than a specific Roman one. The Chinese themselves were very organized in battle, so it's not like they didn't understand military formations. But this one seemed to stand out. Still, it's not proof. And what about the genetic evidence? Yes, it shows European ancestry in Liqian, but the Silk Road was active for over 1,000 years. Many groups of Westerners traveled through Central Asia and into China. Greeks, Sogdians, Persians, Arabs, and later Europeans all moved along these routes. It's highly likely that some of these travelers settled, intermarried, and left their genetic mark on local populations. So, the European DNA could come from any of these groups at any point in history, not just from a lost Roman legion from 53 BC. It's difficult to pinpoint the exact origin and time frame of these genetic markers. Also, the archaeological finds are just not convincing enough for most scholars. While some Roman-era coins or pottery might turn up, they are simply evidence of trade. They don't prove Roman military presence. To prove the theory, archaeologists would need to find very specific military artifacts. Think legionary helmets, pilums, Roman javelins, distinct armor pieces, or clear Roman military camps. None of that has been found. Many scholars argue that the theory is more of a romantic idea than solid history. They say it's easy to want to connect two great empires, but wishful thinking shouldn't replace clear evidence. It's a good story, but perhaps not a factual one. The most probable explanation for the lost legionaries is that they were enslaved by the Parthians, dispersed, and slowly died out or assimilated into Parthian society without a dramatic journey further east. As for the unique features in Liqian, they are likely the result of centuries of general contact and intermarriage with various Western populations who traveled the Silk Road long after any possible Roman presence. The story is exciting, but the facts, according to most, just aren't there. Despite the strong doubts and lack of hard evidence, the story of the lost Roman legion in China just won't go away. It's a very popular idea. People love it. Why is that? One big reason is the sheer romance of it all. It's a grand adventure story. Imagine thousands of Roman soldiers, tough and disciplined, captured in battle, forced to march across vast, unknown lands, fighting for new masters, and then settling down in a foreign land. It speaks to something deep in us, this idea of lost people, epic journeys, and hidden histories. It's like a real-life legend. It also connects two of the biggest, most powerful ancient civilizations, Rome and China. These empires ruled over millions of people. They had amazing cultures, armies, and technologies. The idea of them meeting, even indirectly through a lost legion, is exciting. It creates a bridge between East and West that feels powerful and meaningful. It makes the ancient world seem smaller, more interconnected than we often think. For the people of Liqian, the theory has had a huge impact. Whether it's true or not, the story has become part of their identity. It's given them a unique cultural heritage. They've embraced the idea. You can see Roman-style architecture in the village, like columns and arches. They have festivals related to their supposed Roman ancestry. It's become a tourist attraction. People visit Liqian because of this story. So, for the local community, the theory has brought attention and a sense of specialness. So, it doesn't really matter if a historian believes it or not, it's part of their story now. The media and popular culture also play a big role. Books, documentaries, and news reports often highlight the more intriguing aspects of the theory. They focus on the possibilities, the genetic hints, and the striking historical details. It makes for good television and fascinating headlines. The mystery is more compelling than a definitive no. People are drawn to stories that challenge what we think we know. In a way, the story reminds us how much we still don't know about history. There are huge gaps in our understanding of the ancient world. Records are incomplete. Archaeological sites are still being discovered, so when a theory like this comes along, it sparks our imagination and makes us wonder what else might be hidden. It encourages us to keep looking, to keep questioning. Ultimately, the tale of the lost Roman legion ending up in China remains a fascinating historical puzzle. It's a theory built on a few intriguing clues, some interesting coincidences, and a whole lot of human curiosity. The DNA evidence points to Western ancestry, but it's not specific enough. The historical texts are open to interpretation. The archaeological finds are weak. Most experts would say there's no solid proof. But even without definitive proof, the story holds a powerful appeal. It's a testament to the enduring human desire for epic tales, for connections across cultures, and for solving the great mysteries of the past. It shows how history isn't always black and white. Sometimes the most enduring stories are the ones that leave us wondering, still searching for answers, and imagining what might have been. The lost Roman legion in China is one of those stories. It might not be true, but it's a great tale to think about.